Welcome back to the Living Transplant podcast. I am extremely excited to have a good friend of mine, Charles Cook, on today. Welcome, Charles. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Candice. This is a great way to start off a beautiful Friday. There's nothing that I love more than a good conversation with a good friend, an exchange of ideas and information. So let's get to it.
Awesome. So I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Charles Cook. I am 54 years old. I am the father of two fantastic young adults. They both live in Toronto. One son and one daughter, Matthew and Chloe. They've been kind of my inspiration to get through all of the crazy stuff that I've been through. And, born and raised in Georgia, born in the city of Waycross, which is my mom's hometown. Then we moved to Atlanta, where I grew up, 16 miles east of Atlanta in a town called Stone Mountain, Georgia. Moved to Canada in the summer of 2006. Have been here ever since in the Kitchener-Waterloo area.
Amazing. And can you tell us who is the guest who is joining us today in the background?
Oh, that's Millie, our Myers parrot. She isn't on camera or on the podcast officially, but she always has something to say.
I love it. That's great. So thinking back to your time in Georgia, can you tell me a little bit about how you came to Ontario and what kind of spurred that move for you?
I was married to a girl from Ontario at the time. Back in 2005, we actually had decided to move back to Ontario because we've been in Georgia for 10 years. And we met and got married when we were down in Florida. I was finishing up school for hotel restaurant management. And the way it worked out was the general manager of the restaurant was a guy named Jeff. He was from Montreal, the first official Canadian that I ever knew in my life. Yeah. And he hired a girl that was looking for work. And he said, "You're going to be training her last 2 days of training. You can thank me later." And we wound up hitting it off, got married, had our first child, Matthew, down in Florida. And we said, we were in Miami at the time, said, there's no way we're going to raise a kid in Miami. I graduated, got a job with a restaurant company back home in Atlanta. We moved back to Atlanta. I started off as a manager in training. That was back in 1996, which, as you may or may not know, was the year that the whole world came to Atlanta for the Summer Olympics. Right. I got out of training, I think probably a week or two before the Olympics hit town. It was a crazy time, but made it through that. And then eventually left operations, running restaurants, to start hiring managers for the company. And like I said, in 2005, the plan was for us to move to Canada when the kids got out of school that summer. My wife at the time was really missing home. And I said, I can do this anywhere. They have restaurants in Canada. I can find a job up there. Mm-hmm. So that was how we entered 2005. And then in March of 2005, did some interviews at the restaurant in Athens, Georgia, which is the home of the University of Georgia. Go Dogs, the back-to-back national college football champions. And we were looking to move a manager from the Athens restaurant back home to Florida. He'd done a good job, so we need to find a replacement. So I got done my interviews that day, had lunch with the general manager of the restaurant, said, I think, out of this bunch that I interviewed today, we're probably going to get somebody to be the replacement for the person that we wanted to move. He said, all right, walk me out to my car, have a good day. I was supposed to go to Chattanooga, Tennessee the next day, called the regional manager and said, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. We got some interviews set up. And then, I started driving home. Didn't make it too far, and I started feeling funny. And I tried to pull off the road to get into the median just to kind of figure out what was going on. And everything kind of broke loose. I wound up having a massive stroke behind the wheel of the car. And, it was in 5 o'clock traffic. I didn't hit anybody. Nobody hit me. That was the first little miracle. Somebody back in traffic saw what happened, stopped to check on me, realized I was pretty messed up. They called 911, then waited with me till the paramedics got there. The paramedics took me to the nearest emergency room. which years later I found out one of my best friend's mom was working there. And actually the guy that I named my son after. And we never knew that until like 20 years later when I caught up with him again. Matthew, one of my best friends. So they got the medicine in me within the 3-hour window, which after 3 hours, then there's permanent irreversible damage done. And then it was just kind of wait and see, there was no movement, no sensation on the entire left side of my body. I was completely blind in my left eye. And that was the shape that my wife and kids found me in when they got to the hospital that night. And, it was really, really, I don't know, strange and tough time, because I kissed my kids goodnight the night before. They're 8 and 6 at this point, and just said, I love you, have a good day at school tomorrow. Cause I had to get up and go, to be at the Athens restaurant before they were out the door. And always told my wife, I love you, because with the work that I did, I was on the road every day. And there was a chance that, one of those days I wasn't going to be coming home. And that happened to be the night. And the doctor, this is of course after the fact, I'm just kind of laying there all messed up. The doctor had told my wife that things weren't looking good. My brain was swelling up, there was no movement, no sensation, all that stuff. He said, prepare yourself for the eventuality that if he comes home at all, he being me, he's going to be coming home in a wheelchair. Well, like my mama said, they don't know everything. When she saw me in the hospital, the other weird part about it, the day that it happened was March 9th, which is my mom's birthday. And so I always call my mom and say, happy birthday. I didn't call her that day. So she knew something was up. So the next day, they came to see me, her and my dad came to see me in the hospital, and she was a little bit sad. I'm like, no, I didn't forget your birthday. I was just a little busy, trying to stay alive kind of thing.
Right.
And she put her hand, on my chest and said, Chucky, they don't know everything, because she got in the news too. And 12 days later, I got up and walked out of the hospital under my own steam. And then it was 14 months of rehab and recovery. I saw every specialist you could think of: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapist. My face was all messed up. So a lady used to come with a sonic gun and shoot sonic waves into my face to get the muscles back. One weird thing was I had to go to an ocular therapist because my left eye was all messed up. The muscles were gone and I'd lost control of it. So I had to wear these special goggles when I go into the ocular therapist. And I took Chloe one time and she got kind of freaked out because you put the goggles on and it magnifies your eyes up on a big screen so the doctor can see, what's going on. And, I'd look left and right. And then if I looked over to the right, then my right eye is going normal, but then my left eye, kind of lags behind, and she kind of got freaked out with that. But there was the exercise I had to do to get control of the muscles again, called gaze stabilization, where basically they just put beads on a shoestring, and Chloe would help me with that because she was little. After school she'd twirl around the shoestring and then hold it, and then it was just fun. And that was a big part of it too, because I said, Matt and Chloe were my inspiration to get through all that. They were there with me, and it was time that I had with them that I wouldn't have because I was at work every day. But then for over a year, we were together every day, and they kind of got used to me being around. And I remember when I finally got the clearance to go back to a return to work trial, they cried. They grabbed me around my legs and were like, Daddy, we're going to miss you. And I was like, that's cool. I'm going to be all right. But during all of that, those 14 months of rehab, my wife and I said, we know that this stroke is just the beginning of the really, really bad stuff that can happen because of the heart condition, the HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And the doctors had told her, that I wasn't going to get out of the hospital, unless I was in a wheelchair. I proved that wrong. But then we knew that it wasn't going to be clear sailing from then on out. So we decided the best thing that we could do as a family would be to put ourselves in a situation where when and if something happened to me, then she and the kids would be surrounded by the largest support network available. And that meant moving closer to her family
That makes
which
sense.
is in Ontario. And that is a very, very long answer to the question you asked me of how I got to Canada. So that was it. It
Yeah.
was basically, I came here with my family in case something happened to me, because chances were something bad was going to happen, and wanted them to be set up so, they weren't all alone. If I went away,
Hmm.
then their mom, their cousins, other family members were around. And so
Right.
that was the real reason that we came up here in the summer of 2006. We landed
And
here on Chloe's 8th birthday
oh,
and have been here ever since. So that's a long time now.
yeah. And what was that like, though, those months in recovery and in rehab, being the go man and father that you were, probably going nonstop with that kind of industry, and then having that massive halt all of a sudden, and having to take care of yourself, and having other people around you help you with things. What was that like?
Completely different and very challenging for me, because
Mm-hmm.
I was used to being, the guy, I don't depend on anybody. I handle my own business. And then if I can help somebody else. I was a leader, and that was my personality. What I had to learn was that I couldn't do everything by myself.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest therapist that I saw was the last person that I saw. After I got all the physical stuff going, then I spent the last few months with a cognitive therapist. And that has helped me more than anything, not just from the stroke, but for the rest of my life. The
Wow.
first thing he said to me is that, this is going to sound corny, but you have to learn to love yourself. You got to forget about the old Charles. That Charles is gone.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, not dwell on what you used to be able to do. You're alive, so be thankful for that, first of all, and then let's move forward from here. Let's
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you can do and then go from there.
Wow.
And that kind of, laid the foundation for for what was to come. I didn't know really what was coming down the pipe, but that sort of mindset has helped me tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so you moved to Ontario.
Hmm.
At what point did things change health wise?
Okay, so again, another thing, we had made the decision to move, and we can share stories all morning here, Candice. And this is fun because I'm going back through all this for the first time in a long time. So we'd made the decision to move. We gotten everything, set. Uh, the last weekend that I was in Georgia was Father's Day weekend in June of 2006. The last time I was going to see my folks. So they said, hey, let's do a little road trip.
Mm.
So we just went up to Chattanooga, Tennessee. My dad used to take me and my brother and my mom when we were little kids. We would go up there and, to look out mountain and all that stuff. And we saw Rock City was what we did for Father's Day weekend.
That's
Rode
cool.
the incline and all that stuff. And then that was on Saturday. And then we're going to have the big Father's Day breakfast together. He's my father. I'm a father now with two little guys. And, it's going to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that Saturday, we, did all of the kind of touristy stuff. And then we said we're going to have some dinner. So dropped wife and kids back at the hotel. And then we were going to go out and pick up some takeout, bring it back to the hotel. And we were going to have dinner. So my dad was in the van. My mom and I went into the restaurant, made the order, and waited for the food. They got the food together. My mom and I walked out into the van, and my mom said, hey, they didn't give us our drinks. I said, okay, what did we order? I'll go back and get it. So she said whatever it was, like Cokes and Sprites or whatever. So I go back in
Mm-hmm.
there, and the host is like, didn't you just leave? I said, yep, but you guys forgot our drinks. So he said, oh, I'm sorry. I'll go get them. What'd you need? So I told her whatever it was. And she walked back to the back of the restaurant and turned to go into the kitchen to get the drinks. I saw her walk back there. And when she turned, it was like somebody flipped a switch. Lights went out. I collapsed. And I don't know if I heard or felt the back of my head hit the floor. That was the last thing I remember. And then the next thing I remember servers walking up to me, kind of standing over me, like, "Are you okay?" Didn't really know where I was. I woke up and I'm kind of like, this is weird. And I got up and I grabbed hold of the hostess stand to kind of steady myself. And I said, "I'm okay, but it feels like I'm going to pass out." Not realizing that I had just come to from passing out.
Right.
And the server's like, "Okay, just wait right here." And she took off, guessing that she's probably going to get the manager to say, "Hey, this guy was just laying on the floor. Let's figure out what's going on." I still don't know what's going on. The hostess is coming back with the drinks. The server and the hostess pass each other. They don't know what's going on either. The hostess gives me the drinks, and I say, "Thank you. Have a good night." And I walked out, got in the van, and then went home. And as soon as I got in the van, my mom said, "Are you all right?" I said, "I think so, but I think I might have passed out in there." And she said, "Well, let's get you home, get you some food, let you rest," that kind of stuff. And I was thinking maybe I got dehydrated, running around the sun all day. Right. And then I kind of looked down and there was blood coming down my elbow. And I said, "Oh man, I really did fall." And I cut my arm, And so we got home to the hotel that night, ate, went to sleep, and then I'd had a defibrillator pacemaker implanted in my chest after the stroke. The doctor, the electrophysiologist, said, "Hey, there's really not too much we can do. You can take some medication. We can put this pacemaker defibrillator inside you just for peace of mind." He said the worst that'll happen is, it never goes off. In 5 years, we'll change the battery, and then you kind of go on from there. Right. I said, okay. And if you ever, the instructions were, if you ever feel like you got therapy, which is a shock, then you're supposed to call the office, and then they can read it and let you know what was going on. So that was Saturday night that it happened. Sunday we went and had our big Father's Day breakfast and that, and then split up. We went back home to Cartersville, which is the town where we were living then. And then my mom and dad went back to Stone Mountain. "You guys take care. It's good to see you. We'll let you know when we get to Canada and make it safe." Mm-hmm. So called the hospital on Monday, and they said, "We won't have anybody in to read your device until Wednesday." Now we have the truck rented, the U-Haul truck that we're supposed to get on Wednesday, loaded up, and then leave on Thursday, heading to Canada. Right. So Wednesday, I go to the doctor's office, and the technician's there. She puts the little metal donut over my chest where the defibrillator is, and hits the computer, and it starts printing out the stuff. And she said, "Oh, you had an episode, all right." And then she said, "You went into VFib." And I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." Because AFib, atrial fibrillation, I'd been hearing the whole time, which is a whole thing, from my HCM, the heart rhythm was off, and it was always atrial fibrillation. So my doctor came in and he said, "You think you had an episode?" And the technician said, "Yeah, he went into VFib." And he said, "No, AFib." And she said, "No, VFib." And he said, "No, AFib. He's been in AFib the whole time." He said, "Look." And she just handed him the paper, and he read it. And he sat down in front of me and just started shaking his head. And he said, "I never thought this would have happened." Oh. And he said, "If we hadn't put that defibrillator in you, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because you'd be dead." Wow. And he said, "I'm glad we decided to do it." And I said, "I'm glad that you put it in right." And that was kind of it. And then I'm like, "Hey, am I good to go? Because we're moving to Canada tomorrow." And he said, "Technically I'm supposed to take your license, but you're leaving Canada, so you can't use your license anyway. But when you get to Canada, you can't drive for 6 months. Let your doctors up there know," and that kind of stuff. Wow. And that was it. So we loaded up the U-Haul. My buddy Billy drove with us because we had a car and the U-Haul with all our stuff, and drove to Ohio the first day on Thursday, stayed overnight. Friday, we drove the rest of the way to Canada, immigrated, across the border. And then Saturday, we actually moved to KW. Wow. Yeah. And I've been here in this area ever since. So.
Amazing. And so once you settled, I'm assuming you found a cardiologist here to take good care of you. And
Yeah, it's
how did that journey happen?
another one of those, one thing leads to the next. It
Mm-hmm.
happened to be my mother-in-law's cardiologist was able to take me on as a patient almost immediately. And I told him I have HCM. He said, there's two things I can tell you. There's no cure for it. It never gets any better. He was out of St. Mary's here in Kitchener.
Mm-hmm.
And, he followed me for the first 3 years that I was here. This is 2006. 2009, I went into full-fledged heart failure. And he said there's three outcomes: artificial heart transplant, or death. When I had my stroke, I was 36. So I'm 39 now, full-fledged heart failure. He said that my plan is, once you turn 40, I'm going to start sending you down to Toronto General, because they do the heavy lifting on end-stage heart failure, and we know how this thing's going to end. And that is how I wound up going down to TGH. That is how I met our next guest, Dr. Ross. The thing is, my cardiologist in Kitchener, Dr. Rennie, knew Dr. Ross, like from way back. I don't know if they went to medical school together, but they'd known each other for years. And he said, you're going to be in good hands. I trust them down there. I know the program and that. And that was how, all those steps led to me and Dr. Ross getting together.
Wow. And so when you met Dr. Ross, at what point did she tell you that it was time for you to be put on that heart transplant registry?
Ooh, Candice, kind of getting goosebumps, because this is all coming back. We had talked before, like Friday the 13th is, my lucky day, which is today. So it's another day for me to celebrate. And we'll talk about why later on. But tomorrow is 8 years from the day, January 14th, 2015. Went to Toronto General for a regular checkup, saw Dr. Ross. She did what she called her foot of the bed assessment. And she said, afterwards, that all the stuff you were telling me was not good. I wasn't feeling well. I was having trouble moving and exercising, breathing, that kind of stuff. I wasn't feeling good at all. And after, just being in the room with her, then she said, just to confirm my suspicions, I want you to go and do an exercise test. Went and did the exercise test, and the results were, your heart's done. So she said, and I'll never forget, Dr. Ross is just so straight up, and that's what I loved about her. She said, I got some news for you, and you're not going to like it. She said, it's time. And I was like, okay, we knew this day was coming. We just didn't know it was going to be today. Right. And then she said, I'm going to admit you, and we're basically going to go from there. Now, what I didn't understand was that, we're admitting you right now at this moment. There's no pass go, collect $200. I thought she said, we're going to admit you as in go home, get your stuff, come back, and we'll go from there. But it was like, no. Yeah, exactly. No.
You're staying.
Yeah, exactly. And
so, what was
that?
What was that like to be told that this is it? You have no prep. You don't get to go prepare yourself. You're here now, and this is happening.
Two things went through my head. My wife now, Monica, my current wife, was my girlfriend then. We just been dating for about 7 months. The night before, she said, hey, do you want me to come to your appointment with you? I said, no, it's no big deal. It's just a regular checkup. I'll be fine. And the first thing was, I got to tell Monica that I'm not coming home. Then number two, I got to figure out a way to get the van out of parking, because they're going to charge me, an arm and a leg for that thing staying there. Right. And so those were the two immediate things that were on my mind. Really didn't, I guess I was in such shock or whatever about the severity of the situation, that it was just, what's the next thing I got to do? Okay. I'm not going home. I have no clothes with me or anything like that. We got to get, just the basic necessities taken care of. I'm going to get checked into the hospital, and then we'll just kind of see where we go from there.
Wow.
So they took me down to CVU, and then I became a guest of Toronto General for the next 100 days.
A guest.
Yeah.
I guess that's how a lot of us end up feeling too, right? When we're in that situation, unfortunately, it becomes our second home at times, that you get a little too used to it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's exactly it. Is human beings are the most adaptable creatures on earth. We can, get used to anything. And by that time I'd been kind of in and out of hospitals enough that it wasn't scary. And I really did consider Toronto General as my hospital away from home, and it really became that. Yeah. So January 14th, 2015, 8 years ago. It's crazy, how the time passes.
Wow. And those 100 days leading up to that transplant, what was that like? What was happening during those 100 days?
Oh man, it was, so all along we were planning on me going on the transplant list. Okay. We knew that the HCM was eventually going to cause my heart to fail. The 3 outcomes, artificial heart transplant, that's the only treatment that we have because there's no cure for it. So like I said, I was prepared for, okay, now it's time, we're going to put you on the list, and then you wait. What I wasn't prepared for was, and they weren't prepared for either, and they being the team, the heart function team, which Dr. Ross was ahead of, was that my heart had been so bad for so long that my body learned to compensate for it. And what had happened was the filling pressures, they call it, inside my chest were so high that they couldn't safely give me a heart transplant. I wouldn't even able to be listed. But the reason they didn't send me home was because they didn't think that I was going to live long enough if they let me out the door to come back for a follow-up appointment. So they had to keep me, where they could monitor me. And all of this I learned kind of after the fact. But so I knew the test results were bad. I knew that I got admitted to the hospital. And then it was kind of, well, what are we going to do with this guy? His heart is done, but we can't give him a transplant. So the next alternative was an LVAD, left ventricular assist device, which is a mechanical pump that they would attach to my heart. It'd be internal. And then basically it would take over the work that my ventricle couldn't do anymore, that my heart, the worn out part of my heart, that pump would take care of. And then that would buy me time. It was called a bridge to transplant, which basically this is what we're going to use to keep you alive long enough to let the pressures in your chest come down so we can put you on the transplant waiting list. Then you can wait for your heart. Wow. So that was the plan that we rolled into the OR with. And 8 days after I was admitted. And I remember, we talk about it. I love football. And this was during like playoffs. And I remember watching Russell Wilson win his playoff game to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, all right, Seahawks, this is going to be cool. And had the surgery, and it was very, very nice. I'm sitting here and I'm like actually picturing the room where I was sitting. It wasn't really a room. It was, that section of the room. I was right by the door, and, they always had the curtain drawn, but they found a TV for me to watch the playoffs. And that was really nice. And so, the doctors and nurses or whatever would come by and kind of check the score with me and that kind of stuff. And that was neat. And then Dr. Badiwala was the surgeon that was going to do, the implant of the LVAD. Had gotten to know him, and we had a plan. It's like, we're going to go in there, we're going to get this thing, it's going to keep you alive, the pressure's going to come down, then we're going to put you on the waiting list. And then we go to surgery, and pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. I died twice on the table. After he, opened up my chest, he had to do cardiac massage twice to bring me back from flatline. they got the LVAD implanted, and then after the LVAD was implanted, they go to close me up, but then they can't stop the bleeding. They tell me I was in the OR for hours afterwards, just getting transfusion after transfusion, because as soon as they put the blood in, it leaked right back out. And of course, I know none of this.
Right.
And then I also caught an infection. So I went from recovery to CVICU, and I was down there for almost 8 weeks. And there wasn't a person in the hospital that thought I was going to get out of there alive, but I did. And we also talk about, kind of numbers meaning stuff. So I had the surgery January 22nd. And, I don't remember much. A lot of people came and told me, we saw you and we didn't think you were going to make it. My best friend from Georgia drove up, and my buddy Billy that had helped me move, my best friend Paul, they came to see me. And Paul told me, when I was driving home, I was thinking that was the last time I saw my best friend.
Wow.
And that was rough, but I'm still here, I made it, and through a lot of prayers and support from everybody. Again, it's stuff that you can't do on your own. Nobody makes this on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But March 9th, again, I get out of CVICU. I had been in the C. difficile quarantine that winter. So all kinds of craziness was going on. Made it through all that. And March 9th, I went from CVICU back to the 4th floor, which is the LVAD floor. And, again, that's my mom's birthday, the day that I had the stroke. So I knew she was watching out over me, because by this time she had passed away. My father, they both passed away back in 2008. Charles. Yeah. But I got to see them after I got up here and got established, had seen the cardiologist and all that. Had to wait for my paperwork to go through. Got my permanent resident status for the kids, so we could go back and see them, grandma and grandpa back in Georgia. And yeah. And so yeah.
was there something that you held on to, or something that you did during that time that helped you get through those days, or something that, I don't know, something that kept you going? Because all of those things that kept happening over and over, I think for some people would be very easy to give up.
Well, I have the motto, keep banging, which I got really through life experience. Just that mindset that life's going to put obstacles in all of our paths. Our job is to keep banging at the one directly in front of us till we knock it down. Then we move on to the next one, because there's always going to be a next one. There's nobody that has a perfect life, right. And it doesn't have to be a big medical thing or anything like that. It's just trying to pay your tuition, trying to figure out where your rent money is going to come from. That's keep banging. You don't, none of us gets to choose what happens to us. All we can control is how we react to it. So that mindset of, this is just the next thing. And I've gotten to the point now, taking it a step further, that until something kills me, I know that nothing can stop me except me, And so the question that you asked was what kept me going, having that mindset, but then seeing Matt and Chloe, my whole thing, you're a parent now, that if Clementine needed you, there's nothing that could stop you from getting to her to help her. That was what kept me going with Matt and Chloe. They hadn't done anything in their lives to deserve growing up without a dad. They've been there to help me when I couldn't help myself after the stroke. And until something killed me, nothing was going to stop me from getting back to them and seeing them grow up and get out into the world and be two decent human beings. And that is exactly what they are. They're fantastic young adults, and I love them to death. And that's what kept me going, was until you don't need me when you're grown and out on your own doing your stuff, I become their consultant. I'm not your dad so much anymore. You know, you can
Yeah.
come to me, you know, you live your own life. You can come to me and I can, you know, share my experience with you, but you got to make your own decisions. You got to live your own life. And that was it, you know, just getting to see them do their stuff. You know, that
I
was
like
was
that.
what kept me going. Yeah.
Consultant.
Yeah.
I have a very good consultant now. My mom is a very good consultant. I'll call her
Absolutely.
that now.
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. And so thinking back to that journey, at what point did you get the call that it was time for that heart transplant?
Okay. So we have to go over a couple more things.
Mm-hmm.
So from that March 9th until April, it took me, once I got back to the 4th floor, until April to get out of the hospital to be discharged. Okay.
Wow.
The thing that was holding me up was my INR. I needed to get to 2.0 therapeutic level. And it just, every day it was up and down, but it would never be 2.0 and stay stable. So I was finally discharged exactly 100 days after I was admitted, you know, from January 14th to April 24th, I believe it was. And
Wow.
Monica got me home. And that's one thing that I learned, is that when you get discharged from the hospital, you're not well. You know, I was thinking, I've been here 100 days. You guys have put a mechanical, you know, heart in me. You know, I'm living, and I wasn't well. I could hardly do a fraction of what, you know, I was able to do before I'd gone into the hospital. You know, my muscles are atrophied, and Monica basically was there with me every day. You know, she basically put her life on hold. To take care of me.
Wow.
Something that she did not sign up for. And I've always said, you know, we talk a lot about the caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
If life is a play, I've always had the proper role in this play. I've been the patient in the bed. I know what I can take. You know, there's nothing short of something that kills me that I can't handle.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I could sit there, if the roles were reversed, and see her in that bed, somebody that I love and care about, and not be able to do something to help them. You know, but she found the strength. You know, and she stayed with me. I told her, you know, you got to be crazy. You didn't sign up for this. And the crazier that the ride has become, the just tighter she holds on. And I tell her now, you know, I hope you never come to your senses, because, you know, you get out of here, you know, and, you know, quick as a flash. But she's still here, you know, and she, you know, has gotten me through, you know, and she's my teammate. She's the best teammate I've ever had.
Wow.
Oh,
it's amazing. I feel the exact same way. Like, I had only been dating my husband now, Mike, for a year when I was a crash start onto dialysis,
Mm-hmm.
and I was 24. So, you know, all of those things are going through your head, that you're thinking, this is insane. This person is an amazing person. Go live your life. Move on from me. Like,
Yes.
I can survive. You
Yep.
go live a life, because I don't want
That's
you to
right.
have to survive through this with me, right?
Exactly.
But, you know, the strength and the character that these people have to stick by our sides, and not just be there, but also, you know, make us laugh, and, you know, make us food, and
Yeah.
and cuddle us, and bring us things to keep us entertained while we're not feeling well, and make sure we have the best pillows, and, you know, all of those tiny little things that your partner does for you. It's amazing, because I'm with you. Mike had his appendix out, and I said to him, that's the end of you being sick. I am not a caregiver.
Right.
I'm too panicky, and I am too scared, and I would much rather be the patient than the caregiver, because that is one role that is so difficult. And it's amazing how they can get through that, and be so optimistic and inspiring and funny for us.
That's right. You know,
Yeah.
there's that quiet strength, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, we get all the attention because we're the one in the bed, you know, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, no, I don't know that I could do that.
Yeah.
But, I tell Monica that sometimes. She said, you'd find a way, and she's right, and you would too, if it came to that.
For sure. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Monica and Mike, the heroes of our stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the wee ones, of course, too. But
yes, which are not so wee anymore.
No,
That time goes by fast, man.
it really does.
They're 26 and 24 now. We just got to see them
Wow.
over the holidays, and it's just amazing. I just sit back and look at them, like, and my best friend and I talk about this all the time, is that as you grow older, your definition of success changes.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 17, I wanted to be the best naval officer that United States Naval Academy had ever produced.
Right.
Once, I got my diagnosis of HCM, having a medical separation, obviously that had to change. So then, I wanted to be a great restaurateur. And then, when I became a father, I want to be a great father. Mm-hmm. And now, then once I became a father, my, professional level of success was I wanted to move up the chain with the restaurant company to become, an officer in the company, so that I had the quality of life to spend with the family and the means to have them have a good life. Right. And then somewhere along the line, I kind of figured out none of that stuff matters. As a father, my goal is to put 2 more decent human beings on planet Earth, and Matt and Chloe. And if I've done that, then, I've left the world a better place than I found it. And that is, kind of where we are. They're out there living their life, being good human beings. They know that their world doesn't revolve around them, and that their actions affect others. And they have enough sense to know that they want those actions or interactions to leave a positive effect on the people that they interact with. And I can't ask for more.
Right.
But I do, because now my measure of success is being able to share my story, my experiences, my lessons learned with other people to try to make their journey a little bit easier than mine was.
Right.
And that's why we're sitting here talking today. And hopefully somebody that hears this, can identify and say, hey, if that guy can do it, then I can do it too. Because I'm just a regular guy who happened to have had, a bunch of crazy stuff happen to me. And from the beginning, I just said, I'm not going to quit, just bring it on. I'm going to keep banging, and, here we are. So
amazing. Amazing. And so you kept banging through all of those things that a lot of people would have probably given up at, level 1 or level 2, thinking about video games. As you keep getting higher and higher,
right.
You finally get to the big boss, which is this heart transplant.
Right.
And so how did that happen?
Candice, I mean, if my best friend Paul and I talk about this all the time, if I hadn't lived this, I wouldn't believe it, and he was there, and we talk about it all the time. So get out of the hospital after 100 days. I have my LVAD. Things are working fine. 3 weeks later, okay, so let me back up. The other thing, besides being down in CVICU for those almost 8 weeks with the infection, I lost all that blood, caused my kidneys to run dry for too long. They wound up dying. They thought that right after surgery, we'll put this dude on dialysis. That'll jumpstart his kidneys. Hopefully they'll come back on their own. And they never did. So when I wake up and realize, kind of where I am after the surgery, I don't know how long it was down in CVICU. I kind of looked, and there's an electrical cord hanging out of my belly, which runs to a machine called a wall unit, which is plugged into the wall, just like a lamp. And that was weird looking, but that was what I had expected, in that 8 days prior to the surgery. They said, this is what an LVAD does. This is how it works. It runs on electricity. I'm like, okay, all right. But then I look down, and there's these 2 tubes hanging out of my chest, and they're clear. They got some red stuff in them. They're going to this machine. I'm like, what's this red stuff? It looks like blood. Is that my blood? What's going on here? they said, unfortunately, during surgery, you lost your kidney function and now you're on dialysis. So part of the deal with me getting out of the hospital was that I had to be transferred from Toronto General, where I was an inpatient dialysis patient, to a dialysis center here in Kitchener, which is at Grand River Hospital.
Right.
That's great. The people at Grand River had never had an LVAD patient. So they're like, we don't know if we can handle this dude. You know, he may need to stay at the hospital. So
Wow.
I'm going crazy. Like, I want to get out of here. You know, my whole thought was, don't let me be here 100 days. Don't let me be here 100 days. So the days are ticking off 95, 90. Oh, no, come on. So the people from Grand River came up to the hospital and they sat with me during a dialysis session, because I would go down, you know, Toronto General Dialysis. They have an East Wing and a West Wing. And it was kind of cool. You know, I'd kind of gotten used to the fact that I was on dialysis, and they came, watched me do my run. And then afterwards, kind of had a 30-minute Q&A session. They were like, you know, talking to the dialysis tech and the doctors and me, you know, just basically, how is this? How can we make this work at Grand River? Because we've never had a patient like you before.
Right.
And this was on a Wednesday, because my schedule has always been Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And at the end of it, they left. And I think they sent like 7 people. And they're all like, bye, Charles, we'll see you on Friday. Because the plan was for me to do dialysis on Wednesday. Thursday, I would get discharged, which is my off day. Then Friday, I would start at Grand River. And
Wow.
So that was Wednesday. Thursday, the nurse practitioner comes in my room and says, hey, you know, Grand River says they can't take you. I'm like, what? I lost my mind. I was super disappointed and super angry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did they give a reason why? They're like, no, they just left a message. And I'm like, this makes no sense. And I'm like, I cannot stay in this place anymore. There's nothing keeping me here. Again,
Right.
my ignorance, you know, of how poor of physical condition I was. I thought I was much better than I was. And, you know, life taught me that I wasn't once I got out. But they said, okay, we'll make a deal with you. Basically, we'll give you a day pass. Once your INR gets to 2.0, then we can let you go safely home.
Right.
What we'll do is, on your days that you're not having to do dialysis, you can stay at home in Kitchener. But since Grand River can't take you as a patient, then you're going to have to do dialysis here.
Oh my goodness.
So check out this schedule. You talk about, you know, keep banging. This is where Monica just, you know, just made it for me. You know, again, we were just going out at this point, but this is when she became the stuff of this one you don't let go. She was working as an esthetician on King Street in Waterloo. She would get up in the morning. We would get up. She would drive me to Toronto. She would drop me off because I had second shift dialysis. I would go to sleep in the corner. She would drive back to Waterloo, work her shift, get off, drive back to Toronto to pick me up after my shift is done. It's just like 5 o'clock. And then we would drive home. We had to do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Thursdays, I had to go to Toronto General for my LVAD checkup. We did that for 2 weeks, almost killed us, but it made us. You know, we made it through that, and there's nothing through this whole journey that's been any harder than that. The third week, I finally get to go to dialysis at Grand River. Okay. So this is Monday. I go in and I see the chief nephrologist in charge of the dialysis program. And my first question was, how did this happen? You know, I was supposed to be here 2 weeks ago. He said, I never expected you to be here 2 weeks ago. I was going on vacation. So his rule was that, you know, no new patients while I'm gone, which makes sense. But he said, I apologize, you know, for the mix up, the miscommunication. And, you know, we got to be great friends. But that was how we started. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, got home, finished my first week of dialysis at Grand River. And I said, this is what it's supposed to be like. This is what life is, you know, going to be. I can handle this.
Much easier.
Yes. And then,
if that actually is easy, right?
yeah, right. So LVAD, dialysis, phone rings on Friday. Mr. Cook, Toronto General, we need you to come back in for further testing and observation. We've been following your blood work. There's a substance in your blood called LDH that keeps going up and up and up. We need to figure out why. And back to the hospital over the course of about a week. They figured out through process of elimination after a bunch of different tests, the only thing that could be causing the increase in the LDH was the LVAD itself, because LDH spikes are created when a large amount of red blood cells are broken down at any one time. So it seemed like the LVAD was malfunctioning. I'm like, this thing's working great. I feel better than I have in years, you know? But the only way to find out if that is what it is they need to take it out and physically examine it by opening it up. And to do that, it needed to be replaced, which required another surgery. So after the 100 days, I was out for 3 weeks, had to go back for a week of testing. And then after that week, we're in May, I have LVAD 2. I get to do it all over again. Had the second LVAD surgery. That went off, you know, with flying colors. And Dr. Badiwala did that surgery again. And before he left, he opened up the device in the OR and took a picture of it with his cell phone so he could show me. And it was literally like a big glob of reddish, grayish junk that would have gummed up the works and would have stopped the LVAD from working, and I would have died. So if they hadn't caught it when they did, again, we're not sitting here, you know, and talking to each other.
Wow.
And that
So
LVAD held up.
I'm going to have you pause there, and we'll say hello to Dr. Ross because she has joined us.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How is everybody?
Doing
Good.
well.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We've Charles is an old friend, and we've been recounting our horror stories together.
But you're both fighters, and look where you are now.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep, absolutely. So Charles, why don't we pick up and we'll finish off after. We'll interview Dr. Ross, and then we'll finish up and we'll patch it all together so that it sounds cohesive.
Sounds
being mindful
good.
of Dr. Ross's time here.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn on my video for a second just so I can say hey to Dr. Ross face to face.
Hey, you.
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
Good to see you.
I like your outfit. We go to the same tailor.
I'm wearing,
Good to be seen.
in honor of today's thing, I'm wearing one of my Test Your Limits athletics.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm wondering, Charles, if you want to introduce Dr. Ross.
Sure. You know, I've called Dr. Ross the queen of my heart function for years. And that's the only title that she goes by in my book. She is the boss, Dr. Heather Ross.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And in your words, Dr. Ross, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my official title is head of the Division of Cardiology at the Peter Monk Cardiac Center, scientific lead for the Ted Rogers Center for Heart Research at Peter Monk Cardiac Center, the Loretta and Rogers Chair in Heart Function, the Pfizer Chair in Cardiovascular Research, Professor of Medicine at the University of Toronto.
Amazing. That's fantastic.
But at the end, that's it. It's a mouthful. But what I would say is, I am a woman seeking to partner with patients to enable the best possible care. That really has been the goal. That's been the journey all along. It's how do we partner with our patients? How do we better understand the patient journey? How do we understand some of the issues related to disparities in access and care? How do we actually address? How do we truly understand the patient experience and what matters to patients in terms of quality of life? And how do we achieve that? And I think that's been the best part of the journey. titles are great. Titles allow you to sometimes to move the needle in different ways, but at the end of the day, it's everything that we have done and that we do in the program is really trying to center it around improving the patient experience.
That's amazing to hear from a patient perspective that is, at the forefront of everything you do. And how did you get to that place? Does that thought process come from, way back as a child, or, is this something that's come to you through the years?
So there's no docs in my family. But for whatever reason, I remember very clearly my mom asked me when I was a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a doctor. Didn't have a way to explain why, just knew it was always what I wanted to do. And then I had a couple of pretty significant experiences. One was when I was an intern, and my grandmother had a heart attack. My parents were out of town, and my grandmother had a heart attack, and I was the next of kin who was most readily available. And I remember going to see my grandmom, and she was older, and her husband had died, and she really wasn't enjoying quality of life without her husband and in that environment, and didn't want anything done. And it was a really interesting experience, to be honest with you, Candice, because there we were in the emergency room. She'd been in assisted living, independent, but in assisted living. And there we were in the emergency room, and she'd had a large heart attack, was suffering from acute heart failure. And the doc in the emergency room was sort of, we need to intubate, we need to do these other treatments. And I was, my grandmother doesn't want those done. Her express goals are not to do those things. And I was there, and the emerge doc was amazing, listened. We got my parents on the phone. My mom was the formal next of kin, went through all the appropriate processes, and I was able to be there and hold my grandmom's hand when she died of acute heart failure. And that that leaves a mark. Later in life, my father developed coronary artery disease and heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, and so I was able to also witness the impact that it has. So, those are two important things that happened. One very early on probably helped, push me towards cardiology. I was already a cardiologist when my dad started to develop issues. And then, of course, there was the major moment on Vincent when I developed high altitude pulmonary edema, which gave me tremendous insights into what patients feel. I had to deal with it for about 20 hours, and I found that overwhelming. But wow, did it give me insight into how a patient feels day in and day out, and that can go on for days, months, years. So the walk a mile, that was a true experience, and I think it made me realize again how important it is to understand what the patient experience is and what patient priorities are.
Wow. And so thinking about that experience that you had at that high altitude, some people who may be listening may not know how you would have gotten up there. Can you tell us a little bit about Test Your Limits and how that came to be?
Sure. So an amazing doc out of the Montreal Heart Institute by the name of Dr. Michelle White had a beautiful patient, has a beautiful patient by the name of Sylvain Bedard, that many people will know his name. And they did Mont Blanc in, I think it was 2002. And I said to Michelle, "You bastard, you didn't invite me. You didn't invite me. What's that?" And so he was planning a trip to Bolivia in 2004, and he invited me. And the running joke, which I always like to say, is he said, "Hey Heather, how would you like to come down and climb a mountain with 13 guys on Viagra?" And I'm like, what could be better? And that's because Viagra is used for altitude, but so a bit of a joke there. But
Yeah.
so went and Sylvain was the heart recipient on that trip, and that's when I first met Dave Smith. Again, just really no words to describe how incredible these two men are. And I really enjoyed the experience. But when I came back, I thought, and meeting with somebody who's been a major supporter of the program, I thought, could we do something bigger
Mhm.
in terms of raising awareness and also fundraising? Because at the time, the mechanical heart or left ventricular assist device that Charles has talked about wasn't funded, right?
Wow.
So we had to figure out a way to buy those devices to save lives. And this was before it was funded through provincial funding. So philanthropy was how we did it. And so when we thought about the big Test Your Limits trip to Vincent, it was really around raise awareness and raise funds for people with advanced heart failure, research or mechanical devices, right? Like that was really the purview of Test Your Limits. And so in thinking about it, was like, well, we got to do something big. We got to grab people's attention. So going to the Antarctic and climbing Vinson, which is one of the 7 summits, or i.e. the tallest mountain on its continent, 7 summits, probably will be an attention grabber.
Right.
And that's what we did. And Dale Shipham, another remarkable individual, post-heart transplant firefighter, came on that trip with us. We had Yamnuska guides who are amazing out of Canmore, Barry Blanchard, Dave Stark. And we went down to try to accomplish Vincent. And the challenge, of course, is that many of these things are limited by issues related to weather.
Right.
And we were delayed getting started by just over a week.
Mm.
But the back end of the trip was a fixed date. And so all the rest days that you would plan into a climb, where you climb high, sleep low as part of your acclimatization, all of those days were lost because of bad weather.
Okay.
So we ended up on the mountain with a 7-day window and no rest days possible. The key things that lead to risk of altitude is exertion, rate of ascent, ability to acclimatize, and we had none of those. And on the summit day, where we were making the bid for the summit at about 200 vertical meters, we could see it. It's in sight.
Oh.
Myself and one of our other climbers, Dr. Pat Murphy, our SATs were in the 60s, our O2 SATs were in the 60s, and it was deemed to be unsafe. At that point, Dale was fine.
Wow.
And, speaking to how he is just a true team player and understands that it's the journey and not the destination, he said, we go up as a team or we go down as a team.
Amazing.
So we had 2 guides. He could have gone up and summited. I have no doubt he would have. He was absolutely fine. And the 2 docs on the trip that were there for safety needed to turn around.
Right.
But we went down as a team and we got back to the summit camp. And unfortunately, over the course of that night, I got sicker. Normally what would happen as you descend is you would start to get better, and Pat did. But I unfortunately got much sicker, and in the middle of the night, my saturations were in the 40s, which is a climber emergency. And we mobilized, and Barry and Dale and I climbed down. Dale carried my pack, and it was it's still a very emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, puts you in the perspective of a patient of what it feels like to almost die. And I've never forgotten that feeling. I've never forgotten Dale's help getting me down the mountain. And this is 16 years later, so you can see it still has an impact. But down the mountain I got, and recovered I did, and that was the birth of Test Your Limits. And we decided to do some low altitude challenging trips since that time. So North Pole, Greenland, we traversed Greenland, skied across Greenland. That was just under 30 days. Most recently, we cycled the Dempster Highway. We've done
That's
9
cool.
trips. We've raised over $3 million
Oh my goodness.
towards research, and some of the early devices that we were able to pay for through philanthropy, we were able to make the case to the ministry for funding based on our
Wow.
results. So in every way and on a most personal level, Test Your Limits has been life-changing. And I think, I don't, it's hard to put in words, but a truly life-changing experience, and brought me much closer, I think, to understanding that patient journey. Dave Smith has been a major partner on Test Your Limits. Michelle White did come to both the North and the South Pole with us as well. So it's a
That's
Test Your Limits
amazing.
family. Yep.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, you can, hear it in your voice and see how touching that was for you. And I think for a lot of us transplant recipients, once we get that new gift of life, we metaphorically feel like we can climb a mountain, and some of us obviously do. But that transition from what it felt like prior to the life that we're given after is just, so life-changing. And I've talked to a couple different doctors about, not just treating the disease and treating the person and not having transplant as this endpoint, but rather having it as, is this the best treatment for the person? And what is our life going to be like after that? And thinking about that, focusing on the quality of life that you've talked about, how do you have those conversations, and how do you figure out what the best treatment would be for somebody who is in end stage failure to make sure their quality of life is the best, whether it's an LVAD or a heart transplant or deciding not to have treatment?
So the only way I know to have those conversations is openly and honestly. And when I speak to trainees, I tell them some of my key principles to these discussions are never be in a rush. Take the amount of time that is required in the moment. Don't be hungry. Don't have turn your pager and phone to silent. There's always somebody else in the chain who can answer, general emergencies, right? Or if you're in a situation where you're covering for emergencies, then that's not the right time to have the conversation.
Right.
If you can help it, because it is really important to take the time that's needed. Make sure you have the data, as good or as not so good. By that I mean the quality of the information, not necessarily what it means when you're having the conversation. So make sure you have as many pieces of information as you can to be able to give your best valued opinion about what the different options will look like. Because you can't ask somebody to decide if they don't have the information. And sometimes we don't. And if you don't, say that.
Right.
Say, this is the best information that we have on what your life would look like, and what the potential risks are, what the information tells us about what the quality of your life will look like, and what your survival will look like. In my experience, different patients put different value on quality and quantity. And it is not my position. It's not my position to say what's right. It's up to the individual patient. And so over my career, I have met patients who've chosen not to have a transplant, and I don't understand that position. But it's not my decision to make.
Right.
My role is to provide the best information, and then when asked, to give my best recommendation based on that information, right? That's actually how I see my role. I really do see this as shared decision making. It is, I think I think having a partnership with your patient is important in every aspect of medicine, but
Mhm.
I think there is no better case for where it matters the most, and where shared decision making is just so vital.
Mhm. Wow. And you talk about, sharing and teamwork, and, the theme that comes through anytime I've heard you speak, or even today, is that togetherness and the importance of doing things together. And I've heard you talk a lot about mentors and mentorship in your career. How do you approach those relationships? And, what have those mentors meant in your life?
Yeah. So it's a great question. Often one individual is recognized or identified, and the truth is it's a village that makes
Mhm.
any of it happen, and we have to remember that.
Mhm.
You don't get a successful transplant at any center if the lab tech isn't doing their job right, if the farm D isn't dispensing the right medications, if we haven't ensured that each room is cleaned so that there isn't a risk of infection.
Mhm.
Those individuals don't necessarily get named or awarded when there's success.
Right.
It does take that whole team to make it happen. It just really does. So
Mhm.
I feel really strongly about the importance of recognizing the village that makes it happen. Some of my learning of that has come from mentors, and not necessarily mentors that fall in the traditional biomedical mentor, right?
Right.
Which would be a role model or somebody senior to you, and of course I've had tremendous mentorship in that traditional way.
Mhm.
uh, I can think of many women in medicine before me who have helped pave the way in the transplant space: Sharon Hunt and Hannah Valentine. In cardiology in Canada, Kathy Kells. People who've had major influence in being role models and mentors. But some
Mhm.
of the best mentorship I've had has been outside of medicine. So Dale Shipham and Dave Smith, they've been incredible individuals in my life that have helped me see. And when you spend all this time in a tent,
Right.
in a food tent with somebody at waiting for the weather to clear, or etc., right? You talk about a lot of things, and you get set right. Sorry, I mean, you get set right. A lot of the misconceptions that you might have uh,
Right.
really get your eyes open. And then I've had some tremendous mentors who work in industry, in the private sector, and have run both as visionary leaders but also as managers, to better understand the issue of team, and
Mhm.
what team means. And so for me, I try hard uh, to pay that forward for the
Mhm.
people that I mentor, and to recognize that, I think you've heard me say it, and I'll say it again because it's really still one of the best African sayings, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. That's Yeah, and I think that quote speaks to everything that you've said, and a lot of what you do. Hearing about you, it's all about teamwork and being together. And Charles and I even talked about this. For us as the transplant recipient, we normally get all the glory because we've been through a lot, and then we get this transplant, and here off we go. But it's really the team, and for us, our personal teams too, like we talked about, our partners and our caregivers, and that shift in relationship too, of a partner becoming a caregiver, and
Mm.
how remarkable that is to watch that person step up for you and be that support. And you know, I've been on a few interesting travels myself, and you're right, it's fascinating to watch people turn into their true selves in really difficult situations,
Mhm.
like deciding to not go up the summit and, you know, support you to come back down, or you know, in my situation, I had been dating my now husband for about a year, and I was 24 when I was crash start onto dialysis, thinking, all right, buddy, off you go. You're in your 20s, go enjoy it. But, you know, we're now 15 years later, we're still together and we have a 2-year-old, right? So it's amazing to see what people will show you if you give them the chance to do it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Hmm. Yeah. So, do you have any advice for people who are looking for mentors?
Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion around separating out role models from mentors from advisors. And, I think the question you need to ask yourself is what do you want?
Mm,
What are you looking for from this mentorship or from this relationship? What is the goal? What's the purpose?
mhm,
Uh, and I think that is becomes one of the key questions early on when mentorship started to grow in medicine and become, because I've been around for a while, right? So early on when mentorship started to grow, it was this idea that, and I remember when I came on faculty at U of T, they gave me a mentor. And I looked at the individual and all I thought was, how would anybody have possibly thought this would be the right mentor for me?
right.
Right. So yes, that's great. In your box of things that you need to tick that you've done, you have given me a mentor. But the mentor-mentee relationship really has a very specific purpose. And
Mhm,
I think that becomes one of the key things. So in that early day, I actually sought somebody out. And that's Dr. Ed Cole, who many people may know. He's a kidney transplant nephrologist, and I sought Ed out, and I asked Ed to mentor me. And it was because I had seen that Ed had become a leader in transplantation. He, had built out a program, built out living donation. He had done so many tremendous things, and I was in Toronto trying
mhm,
to figure out how do we really grow the heart transplant program. And I reached out to Ed and I asked him if he would mentor me, and he agreed. Uh, Gary Levy, who was the head of the multi-organ transplant program, de facto was somebody I would go to for advice as an advisor, and he was a visionary leader because he was my boss. But so that happened automatically. Um,
right.
and the individual that I was assigned really wasn't a good fit for me. So I
Mhm,
think one of the important questions is, what is the purpose of it? What is the fit?
right.
And because sometimes if it's a very specific purpose, the fit may be less important if both parties recognize that this is sort of the space that we're aiming for. At some mentorship mentee relationships are much broader,
Mm,
um, and then I think the fit becomes incredibly important. And I, sometimes the mentor has to have space and time, and many people reach out to certain individuals and they may not have the bandwidth. And so they may try to direct them to somebody else, because I want to make sure, for example, for myself, that if I'm mentoring somebody, that I actually do put the time into it.
right.
Uh, because I do think the relationship is important. And I think finally, as a mentor,
Mm,
uh, I have always learned and grown from my mentee.
mm,
So to me, I always find this idea of the hierarchical mentor-mentee. I'm not a big fan of hierarchy. So the hierarchical relationship of mentor and mentee, it's actually bidirectional. In most of the mentor-mentee interactions I've had, I have found it to be bidirectional. I've learned tremendously as a mentor from my mentee, and have
wow,
always grown through the experience.
amazing. So looping back to, those early days of Test Your Limits, you talked about the research that you were really passionate about getting funded, and those research interests that you have, I'm sure they've changed over the years. What are some of those things that you're currently interested in with research?
So we've been really building out in the digital health space, and I think it's technology has always been a big part of advanced heart failure.
Mhm.
So it actually it seems in many ways like a natural evolution. If you think about how much technology has advanced life expectancy in heart failure and transplantation, right?
Mhm.
Through implantable devices, defibrillators, gotten smaller, implantable monitoring devices, patch technology, mechanical circulatory support, and in all its forms. And I think we become really interested in how we can leverage digital health to improve access to equitable care, recognizing that there are tremendous inequities and disparities in healthcare delivery, despite having universal healthcare. We
Mhm.
clearly identify populations of patients who are not getting access to high quality care,
Mhm.
whether that be because of where they live or whether that be because of you know what they look like.
Mhm.
So it is there are massive disparities in the BIPOC communities, so Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. This is well recognized, but
Mhm.
it's been well recognized and nothing's been, I shouldn't say nothing's been done. Many things have been tried, but we still haven't seemed to have really uh, changed it as much as we need to.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of work being done looking at how digital health and digital health tools could improve that.
Mhm.
One of those tools that we've developed is something called Medley, which is a remote patient management platform or program that leverages rules-based expert system, which is a type of artificial intelligence to help manage patients. And it's now Health Canada, it's been for a while, Health Canada approved as a Class 2 medical device. And we've had more than 1,500 patients go through the Medley program. And we did a look back.
Oh.
We did a look back based on, recognized Canadian markers of social determinants, and we're really overjoyed to see that based on markers of marginalization, we do actually reach communities and individuals that are in the lowest quintile on marginalization, respected markers of marginalization within Canada.
Amazing.
Now that is a way for us to say, hey, and they do benefit from Medley.
Mhm.
So now the question is, how do we more proactively work with communities to try to improve access to equitable care? So we have been working with the Winnebago Area Health Authority, which is an Indigenous community along James and Hudson Bay, a number of coastal communities with a hospital in Moose Factory. And we've been working with those communities using a community-based participatory approach. So what does that mean? That means asking the community if this is important to them. And if it is important to them, asking the community in a respectful way to partner
Mm.
to try to develop tools that are relevant to the community, which
Right.
is gets us back to this idea of what matters to the individual patient and to the community, and not what does somebody at a ivory tower think is important to that community.
Mhm.
So I think there's so much coming. Technology is so disruptive.
Mhm.
What we want to do, what we want to make sure is that there's lots of technologies that are commercially available, right? But what technologies are medically relevant and in what circumstance and in what community, and if they are relevant and they do work, how do we make sure that we can have that be a sustainable approach. So I think,
Right.
when I think about where the future is, and remember COVID, we were going here already. We've been working on Medley for a decade. So
Wow.
we've been doing a lot of work in this space for a while. But when COVID happened, the expression that's been used is it pushed us 10 years in 2 weeks. So when
Wow.
COVID happened, we had to immediately move to a more virtual or digital environment in order to be able to provide care, because there just wasn't access because of the
Right.
virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having learned many more lessons or accelerated things as we come out of COVID, we want to make sure that we double down on the space and how it can hopefully improve equitable access to high quality care. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's fascinating how, the COVID shut the entire world down, but the silver lining for some of us patients have been that it has been much easier to access care through digital, either whether over Zoom or phone calls that were happening, because being immunocompromised, we didn't want to go to the hospital. So having these Zoom
Sure.
calls has been so great. And talking to friends who live in Northern Ontario, it's so difficult to get to Toronto General, being able to have their checkups when they're stable over Zoom has just been amazing for them. So I guess there has been some silver lining to to COVID in some ways.
So imagine now you're in a North community and you need to have a Holter test, right? The tape recorder test to monitor your heart rhythm. Imagine that instead you could just go into the local nursing station and they could put a Health Canada approved patch. It's a little patch that goes on the chest, and you would go home and wear that patch. And then 7 days later, you'd put it in an envelope and put it in the mail. You wouldn't have to leave the community to get that put on. You wouldn't have to leave the community to have it taken off. So, right, imagine that. Imagine having Medley to monitor your health status on a daily basis. Imagine using a wearable device to help monitor your fitness and your step count and receive counseling about it. You can see how you can take, a validated, secure virtual environment. Our
Mhm.
hospital used Teams, but a validated, secure virtual environment. And then you start layering in technologies that allow you to actually have increased information about how the patient is actually doing beyond just the video visit. And
Right.
you can see how we can start to think about really increasing the meeting patients where they're at,
Mhm.
meeting patients where they're at.
Mhm. Wow.
And
Yeah,
and
that
why do it just to avoid a virus? Why not do it
right.
to reduce carbon emission, because you no longer need to get on a plane or drive 2 hours or pay $25 in parking.
Right.
Take a day off work.
Mhm. And also like the health, and not just the physical health, but also like the mental health of patients. It's so stressful. I'm 13 years out from my transplant, and I still get the jitters when I do my 6-month check-ins and or my blood work. I still get the jitters. Like I feel good, but who knows what my kidney's doing, right? And so knowing that I don't have to work myself up to then drive that hour to the appointment, to sit there for 20 minutes, then get in, all of those steps that we take to get to that appointment to say, you're doing great. And then you go home like, being able to sit in your PJs, hop on a call or check out on your phone.
Yep.
What is my blood work this month? What is that? Like there's so many
It's
ways that it
liberating.
impacts us. Yeah,
Liberating. So
absolutely.
so the key piece that we really think is important around this is that while we expand in the digital environment, what we don't want to do is worsen what's known as the digital divide. So
Right.
there are people who don't have access to broadband or Wi-Fi. There are people who have low digital health literacy, so they don't really understand how to use the technology. Uh,
Right.
they may not have access to the technology. They may not have access to a provider to refer them in. They may not have access to a provider to be on the other end.
Mhm.
There are many areas, and COVID unmasked this as well. And we recognize that COVID clearly showed, again, as we think about BIPOC communities, that there's a real issue with the digital divide as it relates to BIPOC communities, right? So
Mm.
Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. So we need to make sure that as we enhance this digital portfolio and
Mhm.
this opportunity for digital health, we need to consciously be looking at strategies to reduce the digital divide, which is why we think of it in our way as how do we use it to improve, not just like actually improve equitable access to
Mhm.
high quality care.
Mhm. Wow, amazing. Charles, I'm going to ask you to unmute for a minute, because I know you've done a lot of work with the ACB Organ Health channel, and I'm wondering if you have any perspectives from what you've been doing volunteering with that group and, what we've been talking about.
Oh, definitely. Like Dr. Ross said, there is a large disparity. And kind of what I think about all the time is I've had a great outcome, because I've had great people on my team, including Dr. Ross. But I don't want to be the exception. I want my care to be the story that's told for everyone. So whatever we can do to equal the playing field, that's what we're doing with ACB Organ Health. That's why I got involved.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, since you're back now, I'm going to throw it over to you and see, do you have any questions for Dr. Ross?
Oh, before I do a question, can I do a comment first, or a couple of comments?
Of course, always.
Well,
Yeah.
Dr. Ross, I got to say this. Two of the most important things from the day that we met with our relationship, and you're still the same 10 or 12 years later, and it's been fantastic listening to you talk this morning. One is that you were real, from the first day that we met. It wasn't like, hey, Mr. Cook, patient XYZ number 123. You're Charles Cook. I'm going to learn about you, and I'm going to talk to you as a real person, not as a doctor to a patient. And I always felt that we were a team. The second thing is you knew how to talk to me as a person. I know that you had probably 100 patients at the time, but when we were together, it was just me. I never felt that you were distracted or you had to run and do something else. So you talking about that, I can vouch for you practicing what you preach. You're not just saying it. I'm living proof. No, thank you. Thank you. I guess as far as questions go, you and I are both, pretty avid football fans. My team is out of the playoffs. The Atlanta Falcons are at home watching, along with everybody else. How do you think your Ravens are going to do this weekend against Cincinnati without Lamar?
So my dad is watching. He's really angry that the Washington Commanders aren't in. That would have been his first choice. Followed by Green Bay. So he's over. I am totally agnostic to the playoffs, other than anyone but Brady. So that would be where I am. I'm excited about I'm excited about the change in the structure and that there's going to be more games, but just so long as it's anyone but Brady.
Sounds good.
Funny.
I can agree with you that 200%.
That's too funny. While we're on the topic of football and we have a cardiologist with us,
yes.
Can you talk a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah.
From your perspective, that it just kind of sent shockwaves to a lot of people thinking about this young guy who was hit, went down, and had no knowledge of any heart issues prior to that.
Yeah. So I was actually watching the game.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, it was immediate to me that it was cardiac in nature and not a concussion. He behaved exactly as a cardiac arrest would.
Hmm.
So the first question you ask yourself is, did he have structural heart disease? And we recognize that there are categories of diseases that increase the likelihood of sudden cardiac death in sport, which is why there's been more and more statements around screening people who engage in significant especially professional athletics. So as a professional football player with the Buffalo Bills, I'm fairly certain he would have had some screening done, which is pretty typical. But the extent of the screening is uncertain, right? And you can screen normal on an ECG and potentially still have some evidence of structural disease. So I'm not advocating that everybody have a cardiac MRI. That's not what I'm saying. But the first instance in Damar's case would have been will be, I think, for them to formally evaluate him for underlying structural heart disease. The next is that there is this extremely rare situation that can happen where you get trauma, direct chest trauma at exactly the wrong millisecond of time in the cardiac cycle.
Wild.
And it is completely wild. Should that stop people from engaging in athletic activity? Of course not. Does it speak to the importance of AEDs in arenas and shopping malls? That's a different type of stress when you see the prices, but arenas and shopping malls and football stadiums, etc., of course it does. And we recognize that there's been lots of initiatives for the expansion of AEDs which are the automatic external defibrillators. I apologize. In environments where there may be higher risk. It was a terrible sight. I'm grateful that they had the sense not to try to complete the football game. Everybody it's a profoundly traumatic experience for the players, for his family. And obviously it's been really gratifying to see that he's had steady recovery and neurologic recovery, and to the team on the ground there that did CPR. And thinking about what first responders and people around having knowledge of the ability to perform CPR, having AEDs, that's what saved his life.
Wow. It's amazing. So I've got two more questions for you before you head out. You have a laundry list of amazing awards that you have achieved in your career. The Order of Canada, the first ever recipient of the Women in Cardiovascular Medicine Scientist Mentorship Award, Lifetime Achievement Award recently from the Canadian Society of Transplantation. There are so many of them. What do these, and actually one more that I've got to say is super cool. Those are remarkable, but this one is kind of unique. You were named by Canadian Geographic as one of the top 100 modern day explorers. That is so cool. I've never even heard of that. What do all of these mean to you?
Well, it's kind of overwhelming, really. But none of those happen without my patients. None of those happen without the team. It doesn't happen. I feel really honored to have received them, but I feel in some ways that I want everybody to know I'm maybe just the most identifiable person, but right, I'm not Nat Geo without Test Your Limits. That doesn't happen without Dale and Dave and all the donors who've supported us. The mentorship award doesn't happen without mentees seeking mentorship. Like it honestly. So I remain, sorry, you can see that I'm having some difficulties even finding words
Yeah.
to describe it. I am, I get quite overwhelmed. I'm very honored, humbled, but I think it's just so important that it's not about me, it's about we. It's everybody else that really made the opportunities there, and made those possibilities exist for me.
Amazing. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for either, young people who are looking to go into your field, or maybe your patients too. Any advice that you would like to give to people who would be listening today?
Well, I guess I'd come back to St. Uxbury. This is something I've lived by most of my life, and that is that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So I think you have to dream, and then you have to start figuring out how to make the dream real. That's kind of, I think back to when I was 11 and said to my mom, I want to be a doc. I certainly didn't expect to be where I am.
Right.
Having turned 60 this year, I didn't expect to be here. It's been way past my wildest dreams and expectations, but I've enjoying every day, and one of the most important lessons I learned on Vincent, because I am a pretty AAA personality, probably the most important thing I learned on Vincent was that the journey actually matters. It really does. So I guess I would say a goal without a plan is just a wish. And what Dale Shipham taught me when he said, no, we go up as a team or down as a team, that the journey really does matter.
Wow. And so what's next for you?
Well, we're hoping to do our 10th Test Your Limits trip this fall. All things being equal and being willing, and very much hoping to go down to Ecuador, and get back on a mountain.
Awesome.
Lots of things will have to happen for that to be possible, including COVID variants, world environment, etc. But really hoping to do that as our 10th trip. So that's on the Test Your Limits side, and continue to work really hard on a deep belief in improving care for all. So really strong focus on equitable access to care. We can't just be about the 1%. So that's a big focus for this next stretch.
Beautiful. I love it. And so, Charles, I'm going to ask you this question as well, and then I'll ask you to stick around. I always ask a really hard-hitting journalistic question before people leave the podcast. And so for the two of you, I'll start with you, Dr. Ross. If you had to play on a specific NFL team, which position would you be playing?
Well, I think I know what some people would say I might be playing, but I think I would be a cornerback.
Awesome. And for those who do not watch football, why would you be a cornerback?
Because it always prevents the big deep play. So I think it's when I think about how a cornerback helps teams win, it prevents those big deep plays. I think people would say I'm the quarterback.
Yeah, or the coach.
Or the coach. Yeah, the coach should be cool, but you said player.
I did say player, yeah.
I said player. So yeah. I tell you, I spend a fair bit of time being a Sunday armchair coach. I do that a lot. Get some great hair from that.
As we all do, right? That's awesome. And what about you, Charles? What position other than the armchair coach would you play?
Very funny. Dr. Ross, we're in sync once again. The partner to the cornerback on the field is safety, and that would be the natural position I would play. I would be the last line of defense. I don't mind hitting people.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that means we work together because the corner and the
That's
safety
right.
have to work together. So that's
Yep.
about
Absolutely.
teamwork again. Yep.
Again, yeah. And we didn't plan that. We
No.
didn't plan it.
We did not.
Wasn't pre-recorded. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ross, for joining us today on the podcast. We really appreciate you being here and absolutely everything that you do for our patients and our community as a whole. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. You guys take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
It's great to see you.
You too. Ciao.
Bye. Keep banging.
Oh, that was cool.
That was very cool.
So do you have a little bit of extra time?
Sure.
Okay. So if you've got some time, why don't we pick up where we left off? And we'll keep going. So I
Okay.
think, I don't know if you remember, I think where we were was, and actually, do you need a washroom break or a water break?
I've got
Chatting
water
for a
right
while.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we picked off, or I think we left off around the back and forth. You finally got to Grand River
Right.
and how that changed your schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
So we talked about that, and then got back to doing dialysis, then had to go back and do the second LVAD. That was where we left off.
Yes.
So after the second LVAD, that kept me alive, long enough. Things were working well. We redid the testing 3 months later, and all the pressures had come down like they thought they would. And I remember actually being on the exam table, and Dr. Ross came in and said, yes, your pressures are down. We can put you on the list again. Just she was there every step of the way. I never felt like I was alone. I was always part of a team, and she was my partner. She was the head of the team. So they put me on the list, and they tell me that I'm gonna, expect to wait 2 to 3 years. My blood type is O positive. O people wait the longest because we
Yes.
can give to anybody, but we can only accept O ourselves. So I said, okay, I got this thing down. I'm doing my LVAD. I got my dialysis going. Now I'm on the list. I can live with this. Somewhere, I guess a few months after that, one of the doctors at Toronto General said, I bet you'd be a perfect candidate for home hemo, because we knew I'm going to have to do, hemo. And when I was listed, I was actually listed as a heart kidney patient, but they wanted to do the heart first to make sure that that organ was in, it was, working well. And then they would add on the kidney later on. So I was going to have to be on dialysis for a while. And I really hated my dialysis schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was using Mobility Plus to get me to and from the hospital. I wasn't driving at the time. And I had to go on their schedule.
Yeah.
I had to be ready half an hour before my pickup time. And I had first shift dialysis at Grand River. So I need to be on the machine at between 7 and 7:30. So they would pick me up 6:30, but I had to be ready at 6 downstairs waiting in case they came early, which they never did. But they always seemed to come late, picking me up to bring me home. And after dialysis, I felt like a wrung out dish rag. And so when the doctor at Toronto General said you'd be a perfect candidate, to my poker face, I'm okay, we can consider it. I'm like, man, you must be crazy, because I'm just getting used to having my LVAD where I wear my batteries during the day. I plug myself in at night to go to sleep because the batteries only have a 5-hour lifespan. That way I can sleep for more than 5 hours. And now you want me to learn to run a dialysis machine on top of this? I don't think so.
Wild.
But as time went on, I just got more and more to dislike my schedule around doing in-center dialysis. So I got to the point that anything's got to be better than this. So started the training program, and it was, 5 to 6 weeks training, depending upon how quickly you picked up the stuff that they were supposed to teach you. And I will admit, the most skeptical person going in that first day. And the first day you sit in the chair, just like when you're doing in center, and the nurse kind of does everything for you. And I really paid attention to what she was doing. I was like, I don't know if I can get this. It seems pretty complicated.
Yeah.
But by that Friday, because we went Monday through Friday, I was like, you know what? If I learn what I'm supposed to learn and do exactly what they tell me, there's a pretty good chance I can get the hang of this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the goal was not to have to ride that bus, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I could do this at home, kind of on my own schedule, and kept on going. And so 4 weeks later, so this is the 5th week, during that week, they said, hey, you're doing really great. We're thinking about sending you home next week. I said, I feel good about it too. And they said, this is a plan. On that Friday, go home, enjoy the weekend, because we had the weekends off. You'll come back on Monday. You'll do a final check run with us. We'll make sure that you're doing everything right. All that goes well. We'll have a machine delivered to your home, and that'll be Monday. Tuesday, a nurse will come out. You guys will do dialysis together. Everything goes well. Then we will start you on your home hemo solo career on the Wednesday. I'm like, that's great. Have a good weekend. On Friday, I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Go home. And Saturday morning, Monica left for work. I just made the bed. Phone rings. Toronto General. Mr. Cook, we think we have a heart for you. Why don't you come on down?
Oh,
and
my
I'm like,
goodness.
there's no way. This is 9 months later when they told me it was going to be 2 to 3 years. I literally sat down on the bed and said, is this call for real? Are you telling me the truth? And they said, I assure you, this call is legitimate. I am telling you the truth. You need to get down here as quickly and safely as possible. And it was a Saturday. And I hung up the phone and I was kind of like, okay, all cool. But then I called Monica at work, and I had to leave a message because she was in with a client. And I'm like, with the receptionist, I said, I need to speak to Monica. This is literally a matter of life and death. She's like, okay, I'll take a note. And she slid it under the treatment room. And then a few minutes later, Monica called me back. And I was like, we just got the call. I got to go, And so I wasn't cool anymore. And then hung up the phone with her. And I said, if we'd had like a nanny cam or something, then we could have made $1 million off of America's Funniest Home Videos. Because I didn't know what to do. My best friend, when I left Georgia, had given me a little journal, and I said, I'm going to keep this, until I get my transplant. And I will write something in it to you. It's just between us, because we've known each other since I was 11 years old. He's been there for everything. And so I threw that in one of those little black, like reusable grocery bags that we used to have. Mm-hmm. Threw that in there. Then I grabbed some underwear and socks, and I was like running back and forth between our bedrooms. And then I didn't know so I just sat down and just waited. And then Monica got home, and then it seemed like, 2 minutes after the door closed, her mom and dad came over. We said, these are the animals, these are the instructions, we're taking off to the hospital. And so I didn't even remember this, but when we talked to each other about it, over time, she said, you drove down there. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But I didn't even remember that, because I would have been driving her crazy. Like, why aren't we there yet? Why aren't we there yet? So I drive down to the hospital. But by the time we get there, I'm thinking that we're about to experience a dress rehearsal, which is what they tell you, that you can expect to get the call. And sometimes we'll call you down, and for whatever reason, you're not right for the organ that day. The organ's not right for you. You wind up going home without your new organ. That's what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And what I wasn't expecting was for everything to go through on the first shot, which it did. I remember getting to the hospital, walking into the admissions office, and on Saturday it was closed. The lights were off, and there was a nurse sitting behind the desk that said, we're waiting for you. Kind of like, why didn't you turn the lights on? Yeah. But anyway, she said, okay. I remember giving her my blue hospital card that we used at the time and my OHIP card. And then I don't remember anything else until I'm waking up in recovery. Monica said, yeah, they took you back. They put you in a room. The whole team came around and talked to you, explain what was going to happen, ask, if you had any questions. You guys had a good conversation. Then they took you off at, about 7:00 that evening. And then she said they came and got me at about 7:00 the next morning and said, hey, you made it through surgery, and everything's going well. And all of this, I don't know anything about. The next thing I remember is waking up in recovery, and I had somebody else's heart in my chest. And that was my thought was, I kind of opened my eyes and looked around, and I was like, I'm alive. Thank you, God. You got me through another one. Then I remember thinking, I'm alive because I have someone else's heart now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this so many times, I've never felt so thankful, so humble, and so unworthy all at the same time. And I broke down and I started crying like a baby because I couldn't think of a single thing that I ever done in my life that made me worthy to receive such a precious gift. Me versus anybody else, I was supposed to be waiting 2 to 3 years, and I got this in 9 months, and I couldn't understand why. And I was like that for weeks, just every time that thought ran through my head. And I really got to the point where I'm going to need to seek professional help if I can't get, this under control.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I finally got right with it was the wee hours of the morning, I was in our bathroom, our ensuite, and crying again. And I'm like, man, just try to get a hold of yourself. And the thought came to me that, and what I actually did was I wrote an email to a group that I belong to called Life Donation Awareness Association. They were the first people I'd ever talked to about transplant. They
Mm-hmm.
found me because they did an article in the local paper about me, living on my LVAD, waiting for a heart transplant. And several people in the group had gone through the same thing. They've been LVAD patients and then gone on to receive a transplant. And I wrote the email just saying, hey, have any of you guys ever experienced these feelings? This kind of guilt, this
Mm-hmm.
depression, this, uncontrollable crying and that. And I didn't send it because I talked to myself in the mirror and I just said, think about the person who donated their heart. I tried to get into that mindset. And to me, it had to be an individual who, with their final wishes, wanted to do something to help somebody else have a chance at a better life.
Mm-hmm.
I became the beneficiary of that goodwill, somebody they didn't even know.
Right.
And to me, that was the ultimate form of paying it forward. And so at that moment, I said, I'm going to live my life to honor my donor and their family by doing whatever I could to pay it forward for all the patients coming along behind me.
Mm.
And that's it. That's what drives me now. I'm trying to pay forward not only the gift of my heart, but the gift of my kidney as well. 2 gifts that I've received that I can never pay back, that I can only pay forward. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's, that drives me with everything that I do now post-transplant. And that's why we're sitting here talking about this.
Amazing.
And
I think a lot
Randy's
of
in the
us,
background there.
yeah, that's okay. I think a lot of us go through that feeling of guilt of, why did I get chosen? For me, I was on dialysis for 15 months, and then my mom was the first one who was tested, and she was the match. And so it went so quickly, right? And
Mhm.
I always thought that too, like, why am I so lucky to have somebody who's able to donate to me versus all of these people who are waiting?
Exactly.
And it's hard sometimes to get from that guilt mentality into that gratitude mentality. I'm wondering if you have any advice for people who are there where we were in that phase of, how do I get from feeling guilt about what has just happened to moving into that gratitude space?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say it's more being blessed than luck. It's way beyond luck. I'm sitting here talking to you today. There's so many times that things could have gone the other way that I wouldn't even be here. So, there's a purpose to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing as far as the feeling guilt is you didn't do anything. You didn't ask for this. You got to deal with it the best that you can. Like I said before, none of us can control what happens to us. We can only control how we react to it. Now, the other thing that I don't know if you've heard this or not, but I heard it when I started going out, kind of sharing my story. I used to go at the Service Ontario because that is where you can go and, register to be a donor, because that was part of LDAA. That was what we did, was try to raise awareness and get people to consider becoming registered donors in Ontario. And one guy, the first time I went there, he said, I'm glad that you're alive, but it's too bad somebody had to die, for you to be here. And the big thing is that fortunately I'd had members of that group talk to me and say, it wasn't that you caused the person to die. They were going to die anyway.
Right.
You are the good thing that came out of this,
Right.
And so that is something that I want people to understand, that is part of the guilt there. You didn't do anything to ask for this. You received this gift, but then I felt the obligation to do something with it, because so many people had taken their time, their effort, their energy and expertise to keep me alive long enough to receive the transplant, that now I need to do something to try to pay it forward since I can't pay it back. So I think that is, one thing. The other thing, like I mentioned before, is that when you get discharged from the hospital, you're not well. You're well enough to get out of the hospital that you can go home, but you're nowhere near, where you're going to be. And so give yourself some time, give yourself a little breathing room, set realistic expectations about what you can and can't do. And like you and I have talked about, we can't do it on our own, Our caregivers were there, our partners that became our caregivers, without them, we couldn't have gone forward.
For sure.
Let's see what else.
So you talk about paying it forward, and I know a lot of people who volunteer a lot, but I would say you are one of the people who pays it forward so much that I don't even think I know all of the things that you do. I know that you volunteer for the Center for Living Organ Donation. You volunteer for the Kidney Foundation. You volunteer for the Transplant Ambassador Program, the Life Donation Awareness Association, and I'm sure there are more. Can you talk a little bit about your volunteer work and what drives you to do all of that?
For me, it's, I can't really sit here and list without thinking about it, everything that I do, because I just live it. It's not really volunteering. It's my life. I think that is the purpose that I'm supposed to serve at this point. There's no reason that I'm alive still, and I think that what I'm supposed to do with my life is share my experiences so that others can see, there's a guy, no, special thing. I'm just a regular guy, like I said before, who's lived an extraordinary life because I've had all this stuff happen to me and I didn't quit. And that's it. That's simple. So anytime I get the opportunity to share my story with others in hopes that it will help them have a better journey, that's what I do. And those opportunities just keep popping up. The only thing that I ever asked to do was how we met, was tap, because I had already started talking to cardiac patients through my LVAD experience. And, when I found out that my kidney function was gone, I was angry. I'm like, I didn't even know that my kidneys were, involved. How can you doing something in my chest mess up my kidneys, which are in my back? I've learned a lot, since then. But then I started talking to other patients and they were like, hey, you're not the only one who's had things go not according to plan. And that was a very comforting thing for me to know, because when you get smacked in the face, it's hard to see past your nose because you think you're the only one that this has ever happened to. Yeah. And so by talking to other people, and that's the other thing, is to let people know, you're not the only one, no matter how bad it is, there's always someone out there who has it worse off than you do. Not necessarily that you know them or, whatever. And I would never say that I've had it all that bad because I'm alive. The ones who have the really bad stories are the ones who didn't live to tell it. I've lived through all of it. I'll tell about all of it to whoever will sit there and listen, because hopefully it can help. And that is why I do what I do, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. That's why I'm still alive. So, pretty much with me, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question as far as how I can help somebody?
That's amazing. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you would want to share with our listeners today.
Every day's a gift. I know you hear that. And through all of the craziness that I've experienced, just sitting here breathing in and out, life is pretty good. I say I don't have bad days anymore. You know, I open my eyes every morning, take 2 breaths. The second one is to make sure the first one wasn't a fluke. And when that second breath catches, I'm ahead of the power curve for a good day. Because as long as you're alive, then you got a chance to make things better. It's when you're not alive, game's over. You can't do anything after that. So no matter how low you feel, just keep going, keep banging, you know, give it another day. Tomorrow can be the day that it turns around.
Amazing. Thank you, Charles.
Oh, thank you, Candice. It's been good talking to you. Like I said, however long ago we started talking, you know, this is a good day to start a Friday the 13th, my lucky day, which was the day that I eventually got my kidney transplant. So every 13th of every month, you know, is a celebration. It's another month anniversary. And Friday the 13th, they're special because it was a Friday the 13th that I had my surgery.
That's so cool. Well, I am incredibly grateful to know you as a person and to be able to call you my friend. I'm so happy that our paths crossed. You are such an inspiration to me all the time. And I know, you know, some of my worst days, I just try to think of that mantra. You know, some days are not the best, but, you know, like you just said, if you can take those 2 big, deep breaths and be grateful that you have that day, it makes it a little bit easier to keep going. So thank you so much for your friendship, and thank you for being on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. It's good seeing you. Thank you.
You too. All right. Thanks, Charles. So we will we'll put it all together, make it sound snazzy, and I'll let you know when we're going to release.
All right. Sounds great, Candice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you have a fantastic Friday and a good weekend.
You do the same.
And thanks for sharing so much today. I really appreciate it.
No, it's you know, you got to be real. That's what I've always said. That is what connects with people. And I think that is my purpose. I really think the thing is, the reason that I've done so much is because I say yes. You know, it's not that I'm great at anything or whatever, but I'm the one that's not afraid to be a fool, you know, for a good cause. So, you know,
That's
I put
amazing.
it out there. This is the way it is. So, yeah. That's
awesome. All right. Well, have a great day. We'll chat very soon.
You too.
All right.
Thank you. Say hi to your mom.
I will.
All right.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.